Welcome to OLC 40, Term 2B. This is Class 27. We are on assignment 37, which is a cover letter, and we're talking about noun clauses. Today is Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025, and this is Jillian Percy. Here are all the ways to contact us. If you want to talk to me while I'm in the studio, 1-800-465-7144. Keep in mind when you do that, you will also be on air. If you want to talk to me when I'm not on the air, the office number is 1-800-667-3703, extension 2211. My email is jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. My secondary email is jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. That's the one that a lot of students use when they're trying to share Google documents with me. My Facebook is capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. If you send me a friend request there, please also send me a little message telling me what your name is, what course you're taking, and what kind of help you need. And then there's two different YouTube channels that you can check out for the recorded classes. The school channel is the WASA Distance Education Center. Now, that doesn't have this current term on it. It has the one from September. There are not really any significant differences, but just so you're aware. If you want the one that I'm currently taping right now, you would go to my channel, which is also G Percy Wasa, and look for Term 2B OLC 40 playlist, okay? All right, handing in assignments. This is my most requested question. The easiest one, if you have a DEC in your learning center, is ask them to scan it and then email it to me. You hang on to the originals. Some people also have access to a fax machine, sometimes at work, 1-800-463-7852. That's if you're in Ontario. If you're anywhere else, 1-877-990-2023. Some people do their work on the computer and then email it to me with the assignment as an attachment. When you do that, please send it to the email studentwork@nnec.on.ca. When that happens, the secretary can log that you've submitted the work. It goes into our database so everybody can see, yep, it's there. And then if anyone else needed to mark it instead of me for some reason, it would still be available. Always make sure that right on the page itself, it includes your full name, your course name, the assignment number and name. If an assignment asks for both a rough and a good draft, label it so I know which one I'm marking, okay? Like I said before, some people share documents with me through Google Docs. Make sure to include me as somebody who can view or edit it. I obviously will not edit your own work, but it gives me a way to look at it. I really discourage people from mailing things to me because it's just so easy for things to get lost in the mail. Some people also take a photograph of their assignment and then share the photograph with me through Facebook, or they send it to me in email. When you do that, make sure the photograph is nice and crisp and clear so I can read your writing. Sometimes people will put it on a Word document. Make sure it's the same size as the page. Occasionally I've had people try and send me like 4 or 5 and they've stuck them on a page, but after it goes through an email, it gets degraded, the quality. So when I go to expand it, it's not really any good. I can't read it. Better than doing photograph is to use a scanner app because it'll produce a much higher quality result. It's not really that much harder than using a photograph. You still would just install the app on your phone, line the phone up over your assignment and take the picture. There's these little dots that show up for the corners to kind of line up. You can also play with the borders if part of something got in that you didn't want. And then you would just repeat those 2 steps over and over until you have all the pages of your document in there. Hit continue. Now it'll let you preview it. You can reorder it. You could retake a photograph if one came out kind of blurry. Hit save PDF, give it a name. I usually name the course and the assignment number, and then save it to wherever you save things, Google Drive, Dropbox. Then again, send me an email and attach it as an attachment to the email, okay? All right, we are currently in week 8 of this 9-week course. The last day we can accept assignments is June 12th. That is next week, okay? June 13th is reserved for handing in exams, but this course doesn't have an exam. So that's not available for us, okay? This course has a long culminating activity, which will take between 5 to 10 hours to complete, depending on how quickly you read and write. Some people read and write very quickly, some people go very slowly. I can't tell, so leave yourself enough time. Don't leave this to the last day, especially if you work full time or if you are taking care of young children all day. You don't want to leave it and suddenly you're looking at it at like 8 o'clock at night after you've put the kids to bed and it's just too much work, okay? If you plan to finish this course before the summer, please ask me for the culminating activity right away so that you have plenty of time to work on it. It's worth 20% of your overall grade. So if you're walking into that course with a low D, doing well on that activity can raise your mark to a high B. So you want to do well, okay? If you are a potential grad for this June, you probably are already in communication with us. If for some reason you aren't, let me know and get your assignments in as soon as possible. This one says May 30th, but we are now past May 30th. I'm so sorry, we are into June. And that means that you absolutely have to, I'm just going to pull this right out, I think. You have to get it done in now, okay? It takes me a long time to do the marking, write up the report card. I've got 134 students in this course. I've got 200 overall. If everybody waits to the last day, that's a crazy amount of marking. There's no way I can do it, okay? Now, some people are running so far behind that they're like, you know what, I'm not going to get this done in the next week and a half, so I'm going to work in the summertime. That's absolutely fine. Just let me know, okay? There are no live classes in the summertime. I do the marking. And if you let me know or let the office know, the other thing you can do, if you go to our Facebook site, there is like a little online application form. You can also fill that out and send it to us. So just let us know so that we're aware going in who we have working as our students. Okay, learning goals for today. Identify the topic, the audience, the purpose for writing, and the requirements of the particular writing form. Use pre-writing strategies to generate ideas for writing. Use appropriate strategies to organize ideas and information for writing, such as using the headlines while writing a resume. Create a first draft that includes the main and supporting details in the required format. Revise the drafts in a variety of ways in order to ensure that the tone and the level of language is appropriate to the audience and purpose, using appropriate strategies. Also use appropriate strategies to edit written work to achieve accuracy and conventions in the areas of grammar, usage, spelling, and punctuation. As well, use knowledge of how to write summaries, information paragraphs, and opinion pieces to produce informational writing for a variety of personal and school-related purposes. Okay, so we have talked about clauses before in this course. A clause, as you know, must have a subject, which is a noun or a pronoun, and it must have a verb or a predicate. So it must have something that's happening, right? An independent clause is one that can stand all alone as a sentence by itself. For example, the boy went to the store. Now, if you look at that, okay, the boy is my subject, okay, and went to the store is my predicate, okay? A dependent clause will not make sense on its own. It has to be connected to an independent clause. So here's one where it says, after he got the money from his mom. That wouldn't make sense all by itself unless you had the first part. The boy went to the store after he got the money from his mom. However, that isn't the only way that we use dependent clauses, okay? Sometimes we use dependent clauses to add more information or to replace a typical part of speech. There's three main other types of dependent clauses. The adverbial clause, which often is acting as a complex sentence. Their example is, 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. It can also be used as an adjective clause where it's describing a noun. A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. So who never made a mistake is describing the type of person, okay? And then used as a noun clause, that's where you have kind of a whole phrase that is replacing a noun. What you are, that's a noun clause, will show in what you do. Second noun clause. I feel like that's a little bit confusing, but I like this graphic. Hang on a second. So if I said, I like what I see is a noun clause. They're often a little bit vague, I think. I know that patience has its limits. So what do they know? The concept that patience has its limits. So it's a whole clause. Now, if I said, I like innovation and I know people, you can see how I could substitute I like what I see with I like innovation. It's doing the same function. Therefore, it's acting as a noun, but it's a clause, so it's a noun clause. That's essentially what we're going for here. Okay, did that. A lot of noun clauses will start with that or how or WH words like what, who, which, when, where, or why. I know that it happened. I know how it happened. I know why it happened. And again, if you're trying to check if your clause is functioning as a noun, see if you could replace it with a different pronoun, like we or they or it. If you can, then yes, you're correct. It is functioning as a noun. Now, why would you want to check? Because sometimes when you're looking at noun clauses, they will look or sound a little bit funny, and you'll be like, huh, is that grammatically correct? And I've done that myself where I was looking at something going, that sounds a little bit awkward. And sometimes you can take it out just because it sounds awkward. But if you're trying to see, hey, is this legitimately acting as a subject or can I leave it in there? That's one way to check. So just like a noun clause can also be acting as the subject, remember that does the action, the object, which receives the action, or an indirect object, which is a person or sometimes an animal that is receiving the direct object. So whomever is interested can come on the field trip. Whomever is interested is the subject. I am going to the store and can buy whatever you want. That's the direct object. Whatever you want is what they're going to buy. I will ask whoever shows up my medical questions. So medical questions is the direct object. That's what they're going to ask. But who are they going to ask that to? Whoever shows up. Maybe it's a nurse, maybe it's a doctor, who knows, right? So a lot of times it's that phrase where you may not necessarily have the exact person or the exact idea, and you're kind of having to be a bit vague with how you phrase things. Now, noun clauses can also act as a prepositional object. I slipped on whatever greasy thing was on the floor, right? It's kind of a mouthful, but it's legitimately grammatically correct. They can also act as what's called a predicate nominative. In other words, it follows a state of being verb like is, am, are, was, were. And when it does, it renames the noun or describes the subject. His late excuse is that his car got stuck. So his excuse is car got stuck. They're both kind of, one's a noun phrase, but they're functioning the same way. The leader is whoever gets elected. Leader is equivalent to whoever gets elected. It's kind of like a renaming or a redescribing. Okay, so noun clauses will often start with relative pronouns or occasionally some subordinating conjunctions. Who or whom, whomever, or there's also whoever. I don't know why that's not there, but whoever. What or whatever, when or whenever, which or whichever, where or wherever, how or however, why or whyever, that, if, or whether. So you can see they kind of have that vague sound to them. Okay, moving on to our cover letter. Our learning goals for this part is that you are going to demonstrate that you can read independently for personal, school-related, and career-related purposes. Today is career-related. I can identify the tone, the audience, the purpose for writing, and the requirements of the particular writing form. I can use pre-writing strategies to generate ideas for writing, and I can use appropriate strategies to organize my ideas and information for writing. Okay, quick review. A friendly letter or a note. Most of us have written or seen one of these. They will often include the date. a greeting, body paragraphs on whatever personal things you want to talk about, a closing, or a signature. Now, the two things I find that people are most likely to forget in any kind of letter is the greeting. Oops. Oh, do that. The greeting. The greeting is the Dear Evie. If you just start the letter talking, it's a bit abrupt. It's like you walked into a room and you just started talking to a person without saying hi or hello. The other one is the closing. Sometimes people forget. And there's a lot of different closings, like, hang on. There's yours truly, sincerely, respectfully, your friend, love, whoever it is, right? But you should have those. It's kind of the equivalent of saying hi and bye, okay? All right, so then today we're actually going to be working on business letters. They're somewhat different from a typical friendly letter. And we're going to have a little diagram with the different parts labeled. What do you notice about the letter and how is it different from a friendly letter? So down here, you can see it looks visually the same, okay? It still has a date. Grab this as well. There's still a date. Those both have that. Now, opening statement, explaining why the letter is being written. You wouldn't really have that in a friendly letter because you're just writing because they're a friend. You're still going to have paragraphs. In a business letter, each paragraph is going to have a certain structure and a certain point. Closing statement. You're not really going to have a closing statement normally in a personal letter, but only in a business letter. Ending, what we called a closing. Yes, you'll have that either in a business or a friendly letter. It's considered typical for both. Formal language, no. You need that for business letter. Unless you're like really mad at the person you're writing to, you wouldn't normally. Now they've used the word salutation. That's a very old-fashioned word. I'm going to use the slightly more common word greeting. They mean exactly the same thing. If you ever saw Charlotte's Web, you know where the little spider talks to the pig for the first time and she says, salutations. That's what she's saying. She's giving them a greeting. The address of the recipient, that is required in a business. It's typical in a friendly letter as well, just in case you get to send it to the wrong person, right? And then same thing, for sure, your address should be there, right? Even if your friend has your address, they may have lost it. Something may have happened to them and someone else needs to write to you. So you would definitely have those. So the ones I checkmarked are ones that would be in both. The ones that are circled are ones that would not necessarily. This one is kind of like it could be, but it might not be. All right. Okay, so this is part of lesson 14 about applying for work. A letter of application, which is more commonly known as a cover letter, is normally required by employers, along with a resume, from potential employees, in other words, people who want that job, who are interested in more permanent types of jobs that generally pay higher salaries. Now, this is one of those things. I don't know if this is still true. In the past, if it was a lower paying job, like a minimum wage job, you would be more likely to fill out a job application than to write a resume. Whereas a higher level job, like at a manager level, you would be expected to have a resume. The other thing I would see sometimes is like really young people, like student jobs, would not necessarily expect a resume because they haven't done anything yet and no one's expecting it. I don't know if that is still true. I know some places have gone to internet applications, but sometimes they'll also ask you to upload a resume as well. So I would want to make sure I had it regardless of what type of job, because if they don't need it, but you've got it, it's not going to hurt anything. But if they wanted it and you don't, you look underprepared. Okay. Generally, a resume provides an employer exactly the same information as found in an application form, but how this information gets formatted is quite different. And the person who's writing the resume has a lot more control over it. It's also considered a little more formal channel of communication. And you can often add a lot more information. Like an application has tiny little boxes and you have very little space to fill things in. So if there's things special that you wanted to write about, you don't have much room, okay? A cover letter is generally considered an introductory letter for your resume. it will state that you're applying for a certain position, like one that was advertised, or sometimes a suitable position. Okay. And the reason I'm saying this is sometimes really big companies almost always have openings. So like think of the hospital, right? They almost always have certain positions open. They're always looking for more housekeepers or more janitors or more security guards. Now, don't take me at my word, but that kind of idea where really big companies almost always need people. So even if they haven't put out an ad, it's worthwhile to send them a resume and a cover letter just in case. You never. Also, the cover letter gives you a chance to highlight your education, your work experience, and any important skills that relate to the position. You can also inquire about the possibility of an interview. You thank them for the time, you give them the contact information as well, and it should be on a computer printout. There was once a very long time ago where you could do handwritten ones, but that is no longer considered acceptable. On the next page is an example of a cover letter in block format. Block format just means that everything is lined up with the left-hand margin. I think that's the easiest way to do things. There is a thing called a modified block format that you're welcome to use if you're more comfortable with it, but I don't really find it matters to most people. And the thing about block format is it shows up really nicely on a computer. So it would be my recommended version. So for this one, up top, you'd put your name, then you would give your address, then the date, then the address of who you're writing it to, and then you'd start your closing. Then you'd have some information on kind of selling yourself, basically. Then you're closing, your name, and they've written enclosed resume. It's a bit old-fashioned. You certainly can do it, but it's less typical than it used to be. I'm going to kind of just read it to you so you have an idea of how it sounds. Dear Mr. or Mrs., I would find out if you can who is running it, especially if it's a local place. You can probably call up and find out, right? I would like to be considered for the position of cashier at your store as advertised. I worked as a cashier part-time last year at the Northern Store in Pickle Lake. I am familiar with all the duties of a cashier and can open and close at a till and handle all point-of-sale transactions. I am an honest and hardworking person. I am friendly and outgoing and good with customers. I have good oral and organizational skills as required for this position, and I also have some knowledge of building materials. I am hoping that you will give me an opportunity to interview for this position. I can be reached at any time for an interview at 928-1234. Thank you for your time. Sorry, I noticed there's 2 spelling mistakes. I fixed those, but they have reappeared. I'm not sure what happened with those. If you are only available at certain times, like if you're at a workplace where you cannot receive personal phone calls, like I know some people have that, make sure that you say, I can be reached from 6 to 9, or you can send a message anytime and I will get back to you. Don't put that you can be reached at any time if you're not actually allowed to take phone calls. Okay, that's really, really important. I would just kind of also mention, you want to be cautious about looking for work and giving your work email or your work phone number, especially if your boss doesn't know you're looking for work. Okay, that could be a very quick way to get fired, which would be sad, especially if you don't get the job you're applying for. Okay, so this is now currently assignment 37. Following the example of the cover letter, your task is to carefully read a job advertisement. You have to find it, okay? So there are a whole bunch of different places you can find things. You could go to the Northwest Employment Works job site. That's the local one. They're wonderful. You could also look at a newspaper like Sioux Lookout Bulletin or the Thunder Bay Chronicle. Or sometimes I know that in the communities, people might just post like a local job ad on a bulletin board at the Northern or at the nursing station. That's fine as long as just like snap a picture of it for me. Your assignment is to look at that and write a cover letter in response. Okay, first of all, do a rough copy of the letter and then revise and edit it as necessary. The final copy should be on a computer and should be as mistake-free as possible. Both the rough copy and the final copy should be submitted to me for marking. Please also include the advertisement you found and are replying to, because I don't necessarily know, and I'm trying to see Did you understand what the cover letter was asking for and the job ad asking for? And does your cover letter meet that? Sometimes I find people who've written a cover letter doesn't really match what's been asked for. So that's why I need to see that, okay? As you develop your letter, think about your purpose and your audience and provide the most important details of information you can. And again, try and make sure there's no mistakes in spelling, grammar, or punctuation. So there's 5 marks for the job ad, just cutting it out or taking a screenshot, whatever it is. The rough copy is 15 marks and the final copy is 15 marks, okay? There are success criteria in your unit that show you how I'm going to be marking it. And I use that actually to mark things. For some reason, I don't have here. Okay, so think about the purpose. Your purpose is to persuade them. You're trying to convince them to invite you in for a job interview and hopefully get hired. So I want to point out the big idea is that you want to sound interesting enough that they want to meet you. You're probably not going to get a job sight unseen, but you want to sound kind of interesting and like, hey, I want to talk to this person because I think they might be a good fit. Who is your audience? Your audience is whoever would be doing the actual interview, right? So if you get a job ad and it's for, say, assistant manager at the Northern store, then is the manager maybe doing the interview or is there a human resources person doing the interview? It kind of depends. The smaller a business is, the more likely it is that the manager is going to be doing it. The bigger the business is, the more likely it is that somebody in human resources is going to be doing it. Okay. I know that I am actually reading it, but don't write it like you're writing it to a teacher. Write it like you're writing to someone who could hire you. What should your tone be? Most business letters should sound serious, not silly or casual. Generally, the tone should sound professional and businesslike. And I'm going to add one thing because I've seen this a couple times recently. Not too confident. Okay. Sometimes I've seen people write like, I am the perfect person for this job. I mean, you might be, but it sounds a bit braggy. I wouldn't go there. You could say something like, I think my skills are an excellent fit for this job. But that's a little bit different and doesn't sound a little bit too over the top. Okay. You don't want people to think, that person's going to be full of themselves. I don't want to bother with that person, right? It's a hard line. You want to sound confident, but not too confident. What should my level of language be? Your level of language should reflect what you know about that job industry, right? So if you are applying for a job in construction, your letter should be full of construction-based vocabulary that shows you know what they're talking about. If you were applying as a nurse to somewhere, you would want to use all the jargon that's used in nursing. If I was applying for a job as a teacher, I would use all the teachery jargon that exists. Okay, so make sure you use job relevant language and you want it to be as high as is reasonable. Don't deliberately try and throw in super hard words that aren't what you would normally use to impress people because it might kind of backfire on you. Okay. Again, as much as possible, all spelling, grammar, and punctuation errors should be eliminated. It's one of those things I find people don't care as much about. When I was younger, that was one of those things that was just like, man, death be upon you if you made a spelling mistake in a resume. My mom's like super old school. She's the type that would actually like call up the newspaper if she saw a spelling mistake in the newspaper. So keep in mind, there are people like they're out there reading your resume who might also have the same issues with bad spelling. I think it's an overreaction, but they do exist. Okay, most job ads are going to list a whole bunch of different areas or different types of qualifications they're looking for. They will mention education, but they'll list a whole bunch of other things too. Try to check that you meet most of the criteria. It's okay if you don't meet all the criteria, right? A lot of times when the job advertises, they are dreaming big. They are listing all the things that their perfect candidate would have. But you know what? In real life, you're not going to find the perfect job and they're not going to find the perfect candidate. So if you've got 70 to 80% of what they need, I would still go ahead and apply for it. Okay. Now, if you don't have any of what they're asking for, don't bother. You're not going to get the job. But if you think you've got a fair bit of it, I would go ahead. I would also jot down some quick notes to yourself before you start writing, just so you have an idea where you're going. What level of education are they requesting, and do you have it? This is one of those things where it depends on the job, okay? Some jobs will say they want a high school education, but they actually would hire without a high school education. They're flexible. Some jobs like teaching you have to have the Bachelor of Education. You have to. They're legally not allowed to hire you for a provincial job unless you've got it. So that's one of those ones to think about what the job is. Are there any other specific training or certifications they're looking for? Again, this depends on the job. Sometimes they want first aid training. A lot of jobs in the north want driver's license. Sometimes they want second language skills. Sometimes they want you to know certain types of computer software programs. Do they want a certain number of years of experience, and do you have them? This is the area where I think you can be most flexible. If they say, we want 5 years of experience, but you've only got 3, I would still apply if you've got everything else. Okay. Now, if you have 0, I wouldn't. But this is an area where a lot of times they kind of over exaggerate what they're looking for. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Describe what you know how to do that relates to the job. Your resume is already going to list all the things that you've done at different jobs, but not all of those skills are going to be relevant for every job, right? Especially if you're trying to change fields or you have been working at one level, like a cashier, and now you're trying to become an assistant manager. So take the time to read the job description carefully, see what skills they're looking for, and highlight your experience with those skills. So, for example, maybe you've worked as a camp counselor, an administrative assistant, and a cashier. But if you're applying for a job as an administrative assistant, in your cover letter, you want to really highlight the skills that relate to that job. For example, you've got strong time management skills. You've got excellent organizational skills. You have great computer proficiency with MS Office. You're able to multitask in fast-paced environments. Good with kids might not be helpful there because that isn't necessarily a big thing for an administrative assistant unless you're working at, say, a school. Okay. These types of skills are what they call hard skills. They are concrete activities that you either know how to do or you don't. And they are often really key skills that employers are looking for and consider to be essential to the job. Okay. Now, sometimes they might ask you for skills that you have, but you may not have officially used in a work environment. So, for example, maybe they say that you're going to be doing things like janitorial and maintenance repairs. And maybe you never worked as a janitor, but you lived in a big family and you were the oldest, and so you were responsible for keeping the house clean. You could find a way to mention that. Or maybe you have done job experience as a janitor, but you really have never done professional maintenance work, but you're pretty handy. So you might say something like, I have worked as a casual janitor at the elementary school, and I am familiar with the safe handling and disposal of cleaning chemicals. I am quick and efficient at clearing classrooms, bathrooms, walls, and windows, and I am comfortable doing many minor repairs around my own home, such as fixing broken steps, repairing drywall holes, sanding and painting wood trim, as well as minor plumbing repairs, such as fixing leaky faucets and pipes. So this is honest. It's saying, hey, I have these skills, even if I haven't used them in a job. So that's why a cover letter is kind of an extra thing. It's not necessarily like word for word like your resume. It's your chance to squeeze in there those little extra pieces of information that you might not be able to explain otherwise. Okay, soft skills. These are personality traits. And I find this is one of those categories that people find really tricky to talk about. A lot of times people will say honest and hardworking because that's what the sample says. It really depends what type of job you're looking at. Honest is really common if you're going to be working with money, right? If you're working as a cashier, they want to hear that you're honest because they want to make sure you're not going to take the money. It's not necessarily a key component for every job. For a lot of jobs, they kind of assume that you're honest and that you have to mention it might seem weird, okay? Hardworking is especially important if you're going to be working without much supervision or if you're going to be doing a job that has a lot of labor to it, like construction or landscaping, where it's a physical job and you are prepared to work hard because it's going to require that, right? Any personality trait that is true and appropriate to the job is reasonable to say, okay? The thing to keep in mind is different jobs require different types of personalities. So you don't want to put every single possible adjective or phrase that I'm listing here. Just pick a few of them that you think are most important or best describe you. Okay. Anything that you can back up with evidence from an actual job or maybe from volunteer work is going to be more convincing. So, jobs where you have to work alone a lot, independent, works well with minimal supervision, self-motivated, right? Things like nighttime security, for example, might have that. Jobs in where you have to work with the public a lot, friendly, outgoing, calm, confident, good with people. Jobs where you need to supervise or manage other people, organized, determined, resourceful, responsible, reliable, team builder, confident, takes initiative. Jobs where you need to handle money or like accounting type things, reliable, honest, accurate, precise, careful, good math skills, calm. Jobs in the skilled trades. Again, this is going to depend on the specific trade, but things like knowledgeable, experienced, capable, accurate, follows directions, operate machinery well, handles tools expertly, all those kinds of phrases, okay? So think about what would be the ideal candidate for that job. So pay special attention to any special requirements regarding job hours or working conditions, and be sure that you're able to meet those requirements. So, for example, if the job ad says that you must be able to take evening and weekend work, but you know that you're not going to be able to due to childcare issues, don't apply to that job. Okay. Another example might be if they make it clear you need to be able to work outdoors and handle extreme cold and extreme hot weather conditions. If you know that you're either going to hate that or have some sort of medical issues that will make doing that almost impossible, don't send in an application because you already know that you're not going to be able to meet those important criteria, right? There are things people can change about a job and there are things they can't change. So maybe having somebody who only has 3 years of experience versus 5 years of experience is okay. But somebody who can't work on evenings when they need that is probably not going to be that flexible, right? Now, depending on the job ads, some job ads will not give you a whole lot of information, and you have to kind of imagine what the criteria might be. So at that point, think about what the perfect employee in that job would have in terms of their skills, their experience, their training, their personality. This is especially common for entry-level positions like cashier. They may not tell you anything else. Well, what might a cashier need? Well, they might need experience as a cashier. So you would list any experience you have and possibly the name of the store so they can call it and check. Any kind of special skills you need, handling point of sale, closing out your register accurately, solving customer complaints, handling returns, things like that. Any type of special training or certificates that could be helpful, like first aid. Like even if you're not working in a medical profession, a lot of companies make sure that they have 1 or 2 people on staff that have first aid. So that can be one. Smart Serve certification. If you're going to be a cashier or a server at a restaurant, that can be really helpful. Personality traits. Cashiers, for example, often need to be able to function well in busy environments, be outgoing and friendly with customers, even when the customers are grumpy or critical, get along with all sorts of colleagues, be punctual for your shift, able to keep the work area clean, all those kind of ideas. Yeah, we're good, good, good. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about how to format things in Google Docs. Now, you are welcome to use whatever software program you like and are comfortable using. I'm just aware that I have people from all different age groups and all different levels of comfort with computers. So you may not need this section, but for those who do, this is why this is here, okay? Anyone who is a student with WASA has a student Gmail. Now, it does need to be activated. If you have not yet activated it, contact me or contact the office, and we will get it working. And the reason I say that is because it automatically has Google Docs. And this is where you can also just share things with me. You don't even have to email it. You just kind of share it because we're a Google school, basically. Once you've gotten that, you log into your Google account or your Google email, and you'll see on your screen, there should be like a little circle that has your initial in there, and then a little bunch of dots. If you click on those dots, then all the little Google apps will come up. And sometimes there will be a whole lot, sometimes there'll be a little bit. I might have more than you do because I got the teacher level. This blue icon here, Docs, is how you would make documents. So you would click on that, and then what would open up is something a lot like this, okay? There's a blank page if you want to set things up all by yourself. And there's some pre-formatted examples that you can use if you don't want to play around with the setting, okay? So if you've done nothing on Google Docs ever, you are absolutely welcome to pick one of these. You don't want to copy it word for word, and I am aware of what they say because I use them all the time. But they are a way to get started. So I'm going to kind of click over so you can see. Oh, no, it's not letting me do that. All right, why is that? Hang on a sec. That is so strange. My apologies. Huh. Okay. Oh, I know what's going on. It's trying to put me into the wrong format. Okay. Sorry, I forgot that I needed this for today. Why is it doing this? There we go. Okay. So Google Docs. There we go. Okay. There you go. Okay. So you can pull up a blank document, or if you want to use theirs, this is a letter. I can click on this, and all the formatting is already set up for me. Okay. So then I could just easily go back in, like all I have to do here, I can highlight it and start to print my name instead. Okay. I would, same thing here. I could just put my address in instead. 1, 2, 3, 4, Main Street. Now, they've used like kind of a gray there. If you don't want the gray, highlight the work, go up to this A here and pick, say, black instead. Same thing, you change the date. Now, some people like the green, some people don't. Totally depends. If you don't like it, just cut it out. Okay, easy to do. And then same thing here, you would just use this and write your information here. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to kind of quickly show you some of the items that you might need. Bold is going to make it dark. Okay, so bolding my name and bolding the person you're sending it to name is a great idea. And all you would do is use your cursor to highlight the information and then hit the B. If you don't like it, hit the B again and it'll erase. Okay. Italicized, I don't know that you would want to use that. Same thing with underlining. I don't know that you'd need that. You can change the text color, but I honestly think you probably want to have black almost always. I would want to make sure it was the font is 12. 12 is the typical font. It's big enough for most people to see without needing to grab their glasses. Now, you can decide whether you like how this font looks or if you want to change it. Arial is really common, if you like Arial. Another one would be Calibre. Calibre is really common. What else? Verdana is a pretty common one as well. Yeah, Verdana. You decide what you like. I wouldn't use something weird or unusual because you want it to look business-like. Okay, so you don't want it to stand out. All right, hang on a sec. Okay. So, creating the rough draft. Include your name, address, ways to contact you. Include their contact information. This is important because, especially if it's changed, they might notice it and tell you. The other thing is, especially in big companies, sometimes the person has moved on. Like when they advertised it 3 weeks ago, Jane Smith was doing it, but now Jane Smith has moved to another department, and instead Joe Johnson is doing it. So it's a good idea to have all that information there so they know who to actually give it to, okay? Also, please don't forget the comma after the greeting. I have a lot of people just leave it blank and it's not supposed to be there. And then leave a space or two. By space or two, I mean leave a whole blank space. And then your first paragraph is always going to start with mentioning what job post you want. Keep in mind, big companies might have anywhere from 10 to 60 job postings out at one time. If you have done the exact same job or a very similar job as well, this is usually where I would put it, either right in that paragraph or right in the very next paragraph. Okay? Where's my, okay, we're getting there. And then you're going to have room for 2 to 3 short paragraphs. You never want a cover letter to be longer than 1 page because most times they won't read it. So whatever you've put in the back, they're probably not going to look at. So shorten it up. You're trying to sell yourself. It's a type of persuasive writing because you're trying to persuade the reader to hire you. Again, we've talked about all those items before. Keep your paragraphs short. They're easier to read. The last paragraph almost always suggests an interest in coming in for an interview and ways to contact yourself. And it's also usually upbeat and confident, but again, not too confident. You don't want to sound like you're braggy. And then you always leave some sort of closing. Sincerely, respectfully, yours, your name. Now, again, for a business letter, obviously, you're not going to use words like love or your friend, right? Those aren't appropriate in that situation. The tone. This is the thing I was trying to talk about. This is, I think, is the hardest part to get right for this assignment. So I've got here 3 different levels of confidence, okay? So too shy or too nervous. I know I don't have that much experience, but maybe you could try me and see if it works out. That sounds a bit weak. I would be nervous about hiring somebody that felt that insecure. A strong level of confidence. I feel that my previous experience and my dedication to hard work and high standards, that I would be a good fit for this job position. Yeah, that's reasonable. Way too braggy or way too overconfident. If you hire me, you'll find that I'm the best employee that you ever had. Your business will skyrocket. All right, unless you're like somebody super famous, that's probably not true, right? So it sounds a little bit too much. What should the level of your language be? Your sentence structure should show a variety of sentence types. We've got that. We've talked about the occupation stuff here. You know what it was? I think this item was split over 2 days at one point. Now, special cases. If you are looking for a job and you have no work experience, it can be really hard to know what to write in your cover letter. So at that point, I would start looking at what are some of your volunteer experiences? Have you helped chop wood for elders? Helped set up a feast? Helped run the radio station during a funeral? Fundraising? Helped to run any kind of art camps, Bible camps, literacy camps? Have you volunteered at the elementary school? Have you volunteered with elders in some way? What have you done that just shows that you've interacted with other people and done work? The other thing you can look at is extracurricular activities, especially if they show off skills such as organization, leadership, or any relevant skills. Things like sports teams can show that you've got good commitment, that you're hardworking, that you're athletic. That might be great for something like a firefighter. Computer club, smart, tech savvy, problem solve, some sort of social skills. Robotic or Lego club, same kind of thing as computer club. Arts clubs, that you're creative, you're artistic, you're social. Scouts or guides or rangers, they would show things like outdoor skills, teamworks. Rangers might show special skills like tracking or marksmanship. Drama club, outgoing, talented, all those kinds of things. Any kind of special awards or competitions you might have won, even things like a school attendance award. Generally, the people that attended school regularly are also the people that will come to work regularly. So it sounds funny, but it actually is helpful. School subject awards, best math, best English, best native language. That shows that you're bright, you're probably competitive, you're talented, and they may have school skills that are useful for that job. Poetry or writing competitions show that you have good communication skills. Talent shows or art competitions could be really useful in some types of jobs. Sports awards, again, still show dedication and involvement with different types of other people, teamwork, athletics. The other thing is any kind of special talents or skills that might not be related to a club or an award. Things like maybe you got your lifeguarding certificate. Maybe you have a certain level of learning on a piano or guitar. Maybe you're good at speaking or writing in more than one language fluently. Maybe you know specific computer skills or have good photography skills or things like acting or public speaking abilities. So all of those things are things you could include if you are still in high school and haven't really worked, okay? We are running out of time, so I don't think there's a whole lot more to say there. Tomorrow we will be talking about resumes, okay? If you need some help with anything, reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you. Take care. Have a good night.